and then we'll open it up for questions after that.
Well, I wish I could shake everybody's hand or at least elbow bump everybody, but I appreciate Nathan putting this together and you guys being here. We're just absolutely thrilled that they announced a schedule for us this morning. I know the SEC has done one heck of a good job in terms of waiting until I guess it's right or the right time to announce things, and they were very, very patient, obviously, with football in the fall and soccer and volleyball, and all the medical people just deserve the biggest round of applause and thank you. All the people at Alabama, all the people at all the other schools in the SEC that have kind of made this happen. We can't thank them enough. So we're really looking forward to seeing you guys, hopefully at the Rhodes House. I don't even know if that's what's going to happen there, but we're all excited.
If you have any questions for Coach Murphy, just hit that raise hand button and we'll call on you and we'll start things off with Edwin.
Hey, Murph, how's it going?
Hey, Edwin, good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, I wish I could be there with you, but COVID, you know that. Well, just talk a little bit about that schedule. What do you like about it? What stands out to you about the schedule?
Well, the opening weekend, and as with everything is kind of like constantly evolving, but it's at Austin, Texas. And, it's kind of weird how these scheduling things go where, we played them at Super Regionals a couple years ago and now we're doing a home and away. So they're going to come to us next year, and it's a really, really good, great program, good rivalry. But then in between, when we said yes and now Arizona joined the party. So it is a heck of a good tournament with Texas, Alabama, Arizona, and Colorado State went to regionals in 2019. So it's just going to be a great opening weekend. It'll be a really good test for us. We're looking forward to that. And then obviously the next 3 weekends in a row, we're all at home. So I think that will be good as well. And then the opening weekend of SEC is we go to Auburn, and we haven't been there, it seems like forever. So it's, 4 home, 4 away, SEC. And then obviously the big bonus at the end is we get to host the tournament again. And, we have to thank Commissioner Sankey for allowing us to do that because we were worried last year since it skipped us with COVID. But I think Jenny Mines gets to host women's tennis, and we get to host softball. And, we are going to put our best show forward and can't wait to welcome, all 12 other schools in the SEC in May.
And James, go ahead.
Hey, Murph, just a question for you about the schedule. And just talk a little bit about how important it was for you guys to get a full slate of games for this spring.
Well, as all the other sports kind of did their thing in the fall, we're sitting back and trying to think, okay, how is this going to affect us? What's it going to do to softball and baseball? Because we're kind of like, other than track, we're the last sports to play in NCAA. I think baseball's the last one. So all the SEC coaches, we would have about, 2 Zoom calls a month to talk about everything. And the gentleman that is our liaison with the SEC does a great job. Byron Hatch is just awesome. And, he kind of kept us calmed down a lot. So just like Claire said, to get into the SEC, I mean, you saw football, how grueling that was to just play 10 SEC games, 10 SEC opponents. And I don't think anybody in our league wanted to do that. I don't think anybody in the baseball side of it, they didn't want to do that. So we're very fortunate we get to play, some non-conference teams.
Robert, go ahead.
Hello, Coach. It's Robert Cortez with the Crimson White. What do you like about playing such a tough non-conference schedule when you already play in the SEC, which looks to be one of the best softball conferences in the nation?
Hey, good morning, Robert. Good to see you. I think I've said this before. You probably weren't here then, but when you have a really deep pitching staff, I think that's the time that you play a hell of a schedule. because we're going to play Texas twice, Arizona, and then Colorado State twice. So that's 5 really tough games in 3 days, and your pitching staff is going to be tested. But with a veteran staff, I think it's the time to do it. And I don't know if you guys noticed that LSU is coming over. They're coming up for the Bama Bash, and they lost a tournament, and they needed a place to play, and we had an opening, so we'll play them second weekend in a non-conference game. And then we also invited Mississippi State over, which is 70 minutes away. It's a very inexpensive trip, but it's a heck of a good game for both of us. So that's a non-conference opponent, which is really good for us. And then way down at the bottom in our open weekend, we have Louisiana, who could be a top 5 team this year. It's certainly one of the best in the country. So those non-conference games are really, really going to help us prepare for the SEC. Our RPI hopefully will be strong, but just good competition all around. And I think you really need to get tested before you get into the SEC. And for us, this is we do go non-conference away. We've been to Arizona, we've been to Washington, but going to Texas, which is a true away venue. When we went to Clearwater last year, heck of a good tournament. Played Washington, UCLA. That was a neutral site. This is going to be, at the home of the Longhorns, so I think it'll be good for us. And I think the girls enjoy that.
All right, we'll go to Edwin next, and then Tom after that.
Hey, Murph, Claire touched on it a little bit, but can you just talk about, the increase in roster and how you're going to manage this roster this year with you got so many stars on this roster. How's that going to be? What's that going to do for you this year?
I think we'll be fine. We have 22, which is the most we've ever had. But I think on one of the very first Zoom calls we had with the team after, I was sitting in my office, and in my office I can literally look across the street and see the football practice field. And I'm thinking, if they have 105 guys, 85 guys on scholarship, and most of them are 4 or 5 stars, all they have to do is compete every single day to get on the field. And the same with our girls, and I think it's a good thing. So competition is the name of the game. I think we're too deep at every position, which we haven't been. We're 6 deep on the mound, which is crazy. That's the most pitchers we've ever had. But what we've done, and I've sat at home over the break, and this is the longest break we've ever had. The girls were done with softball and weights November 20th. They didn't, we're not practicing until tomorrow. So this is a heck of a big break. So I had a lot of time too. So I would literally sit at home and, I'm going to knock on wood right now, but I would say, okay, if this person tested positive for COVID, where do all the dominoes fall? What pieces of the puzzle go where? So we kind of have a scenario for every situation that could happen. And I will be okay with whoever's on the field if, XYZ has to sit out. So this is probably the best year for depth. I know there's other teams in the SEC that have 30 kids. And I was really pleased that the ADs voted the other day to increase the roster travel size. Baseball went from 27 to 30. We went from 22 to 25. So although we only have 22, I think it's fair for those other schools that, have 30. Some of those kids get to travel now because some of those young ladies, this might be their last year of softball, and they came back. They wanted to compete for their school. And, for some of them not to have an opportunity to travel on the road would be a negative thing to me.
All right, Tom, go ahead.
Hey, Murph.
Hey, Tom.
Building a little bit off of Edwin's question, the possibility of having a lineup that has both Baileys in it, I think, has to be pretty exciting for you. Just talk about what that type of a 1-2 punch can be in your lineup.
Oh, it's going to be huge. And, one thing we do with the team that closer we get to playing dates is we have I guess it's called a get to know me sheet. And there's about 10 to 12 questions on there, but at the bottom of it, it said, if we played today, give me your lineup. and there's actually a lineup card that's attached to this sheet of paper, and the girls have to make the lineup. And I never say you can put yourself in it. It's just like, if we play today, what 9 would you want on the field? Well, it takes some of them 45 minutes to decide. And then after the activity is over, I say, now you know how hard it is to be in my shoes. And this year is probably going to be one of the toughest to decide who gets to be on the field. So with, you have a healthy Tao back, you have a healthy Claire back, obviously Bailey Dowling. One of our best hitters all fall was actually Maddie Morgan. She's back. Abby Dorr, our freshman catcher, she looked much better. She was actually a high school senior playing against UCLA and Washington. KB Sides, was off to her best start ever, hitting about 474. She's back. So there's a lot of weapons in terms of, Bailey Dowling, Bailey Hemphill. So it's going to be fun to, see them compete, but it's also going to be very hard to decide who gets to go out there.
We'll go James and then Edwin after that.
You kind of touched on it, but I just wanted to know who really impressed you this fall and who you're looking forward to kind of taking that next big step once the season starts.
Well, I think pitching-wise, I think everybody improved. But one name that kept coming up was like, wow, she's doing really well, was Alexis Kilfoyle. And obviously you guys saw her last year a little bit. Shutout, #1 Washington, beat Arkansas twice. Just a lot more confident, a little more polished, all those things that you expect from freshman year to sophomore year. And it's really cool that she gets to start over. It was kind of a do-over for all those freshmen. And, we have 9 freshmen in that class now because we have the 4 plus the 5 that came in this year. So that's the biggest class we've ever had in terms of numbers in one single class. Claire looked really good. Obviously she had the knee surgery. I think actually it was early November of last year. So she's doing fine. She looks great. I just think there's so many weapons around the field. We've got speed, we've got pop, and we've got line drive hitters. So that's the name of the game. I think you need a third, and we have diversity in the lineup.
Go ahead, Edwin.
Hey, Murph, we talked a little bit about this toward the end of last year, but can you just kind of talk about the mindset of this team going into 2021 compared to 2020 when you had #1 ranking, had all these, your players coming back, and then struggling out of the gate, and then just kind of not really finding your groove. And then the COVID taking away the season, you kind of get a do-over. What's the mindset for going into this season?
I think it was Claire said it perfectly. Nobody's taking anything for granted. Bailey Hemphill said that on the Zoom the other night when we had everybody on and welcomed everybody back. Every day you step on the field, appreciate it. I think they're all going to do that. You got a kid like Alexis Mack. This is actually her 6th year. And she has, she counts the days down to when we can play. And she's done that like twice in her career now, where she's just had this extended amount of time before she gets to play. And a lot of these kids are big-time competitors. They absolutely love the game. I can hear the sneakers on the basketball court right over here. And, in basketball, you call them gym rats. But we have a lot of kids like that on our team that they gravitate towards the field. And Mac is one of them. And, I'll drive by either after practice or early in the morning, and I'll see the lights on in the batting cage, and she's in there. So I think they're really, really looking forward to it. I don't think they're going to take anything for granted. And, last year when we lost Claire in the fall, it's just a bigger loss than I anticipated, just not just playing-wise, but leadership, vocal. And I was listening to, on the way in this morning, a sports call-in show, and I think it was J.P. Wilson, John Parker, talking about, the football team and the losses, and he said, you're going to lose Mac Jones, you're going to lose Devontae, you're going to lose Landon, and he said, can we get that type of kid back? Well, that's the hardest thing. You can't. Leadership is the hardest thing to find, and it's very difficult to replicate in different people. So that to me was the biggest thing that I realized, that Claire had just like this calming presence, and thankfully she's back.
James, go ahead.
Murph, you talked about how much time there was in between the end of November and to now, and you talked about how the girls are raring to go. Was there something during this time off that you had to change because of the shortened season of COVID-19? You talked about kind of going through your lineup and finding if this person, God forbid, had COVID, what do we do? Were there any other changes that you made to kind of get yourself ready for this season, or has it kind of been status quo for you?
I think it's been status quo. Michelle Diltz, one thing that after every year, I always, have exit interviews with everybody and say, good, bad, or ugly, let me have it. What did you like, what you didn't like, and what would you like to see more of? So what did you like, what did you didn't like, and what do we need to do more of? And one thing that was consistent with everybody is they felt like we didn't have enough time in the weight room with Michelle. And I don't know if it was the calendar or my fault, whatever. So we changed that. So Michelle got more time. Michelle Diltz, who's our strength coach, she got more time. So I think we were in better shape. But then the 7 weeks came between November 20th and, this week. So they had to do some things on their own, over Christmas break. Obviously, Michelle provides them with a workout, but we never know if they do it, and we can't. We had some voluntary team building things on Zoom, which was good for everybody because we kind of checked in with everybody if they could be on it. So that was really the only difference. So I think that sometimes you need a little bit of time away from something or someone to realize how much you really love that person or that activity. And I think this is going to be one of those times where they've had 6.5 weeks away, and I think they all really miss it.
Jenny, go ahead.
Jenny.
Hey, Coach, it's always good to see you. So when it comes to team building, that's such an important part of your program, the connections that you make one with another. You mentioned that you had some Zoom team building, but what other things were you able to do to create the connection that's so unique to Alabama?
Well, I'm really glad you're on here, so good to see you. That was the hardest part of the fall, Jenny, to be honest, because we could not get in our classroom like normal. It seats 24 people, and we have chairs and desks, and they all have their own notebook, and it's like a classroom, and we weren't in there at all. So normally, every day before practice, we're in there 5-10 minutes, some days 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on what we want to do. We teach a life lesson, we watch a video, we discuss something in current events. We didn't get to do that all. So I think probably the last thing of the last week, we usually call it Gratitude Week because it runs into Thanksgiving. And we were able to do our one of our best activities is just phone calls from home. And we arranged with the parents, and each parent of the senior class calls at a very specific time. And the first call obviously is the biggest surprise because my phone rings and it's on a speaker, and everybody turns around and says, uh-oh, somebody's in trouble, because you're not supposed to have your phone on. And I answer the phone, and it's one of the kids' parents, and everybody can hear that parent's voice. And then immediately what all the kids do is they turn to the kid and they're like, uh-oh. And then, of course, that player is like, why is my dad calling Murphy's phone? And it's a big surprise for everybody. But then the young lady, we have the room set up in like a U, and she comes up in the middle of everybody, sits in a chair, and then the parent says whatever they want to say to their daughter. And I tell them beforehand that I want you to fill their buckets to the brim, and let's send them off on a good note, because this is going to be her last year playing softball. You know, you've been with her since she was 4 years old, 5 years old, throwing the ball in the yard and hitting and whatever. And Jenny, the strongest connection is the dad and the daughter. Almost every single time, it's the dad that does the talking. And at the end of the call, you hear, "Jenny, I love you," and it's the mom yelling from the background. So that activity, you know, we didn't get to do much of it all fall, but just that activity where everybody hears what that parent says about their daughter. And, you know, you think that the daughter is filled up. Well, she is, but so is everybody else on the team. Also, the parents, they feel really good. So we're going to try to do a little bit more this spring. And actually, if we have to go outside and sit on the outfield grass and do things like that, or we can go into the stands. But it was a tough time for everybody.
We'll go Tom first and then Eric after that.
Coach talked about earlier having the pitching depth again this year with getting Sarah back and, you know, having a really big staff. Is it important to you to get defined roles for everybody, or is it just kind of a, you know, game by game situation?
I think it's, you know, and we've tried to explain it last year, where whatever the matchups work best, which pitcher has the best opportunity to defeat a specific team. So if it's somebody that can't handle speed, we got an answer. If it's somebody that can't hit a drop ball, we got an answer. If somebody can't hit a good changeup, we got an answer. So that part of it. And then also the other, which two pitchers work best together? So if I have to make a switch in the fifth inning, which one works best with Sarah on the back end of it? Or which one works best with Crystal? And usually you'd rather have opposites. You know, you don't want the same thing throughout 7 innings. You want something different. And really the only thing that we don't have this year is a lefty. So we've got 6 different types of pitchers, all throw at different speeds, all have one really good pitch. So that part of it's going to be fun. And in these first 3 weeks of preseason practice, that's what I'm going to try to figure out, okay, which two go best together. And, you know, we're going to scrimmage, so we'll see.
All right, Eric, go ahead.
Coach, great to talk to you again. I'm curious, obviously, how beneficial is it that the fall sports teams got to play, you got to have a template, and are thriving? Football, obviously, another national championship, but the basketball team's currently having great seasons. How big is that for you and kind of having that template? And do you talk to your team about that fact that not only are other teams playing in these conditions, but thriving?
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you brought it up. That's why I love to be a spring sport. I get to learn from Coach Saban, you know, Coach Hart with soccer, Lindsay Devine with volleyball. You pay attention to all the fall sports. Then you get a little bit of the winter sports with Nate Oates and Christy Curry, who are both doing just great jobs this year. But this year especially, you know, one thing that the spring sports have kind of gotten together and said, okay, we need best COVID practices. What do we need to do to avoid X, Y, Z? So we've asked all the trainers, we've asked all the coaches, what did you do that, oh, rats, I shouldn't have done this as a team? Or, man, you need to do this because this really helped us out. So, and I've reached out to other universities' coaches, not just ours. And I'll just say, hey, was there anything that you did that really helped you guys? So I've tried to do that. And we've communicated a lot. Obviously, the athletic trainers all talk all the time. So here, obviously, it starts with Jeff Allen and then Aaron Cohen, and then our trainer is AC Atinka. So they have all worked together. And, you know, there's little tricks of the trade that we're learning every single day.
Any other questions for Coach Murphy? All right, if not, we'll go ahead and end it there. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, one thing I wanted to add is I wanted to say a public thank you to Mr. Bill Battle, who he was the hero for us this year. He donated the money for our 7 seniors to come back. He called me late April and said, I wasn't sure what he was going to say on his phone call, but he said, we just absolutely love the way you do things, and this is what we want to do for you. And I was absolutely floored. I said, Coach Battle, your legacy with us was absolutely cemented. I don't know if you could do anything more or better, but after that, I realized just the type of person he was, just an incredible individual. And as a result of that, we'll have 6 seniors, super seniors, that will graduate with a master's degree, and a 7th, Crystal Goodman, who will come away with 2 undergrad degrees. So we can't thank him enough.
All right. Thanks, Murph, and thanks everybody for coming today.